Hello, audience. This is the episode everyone's waiting for, the one where I don't talk, except at the beginning, of course. I'm Aaron, and this is Luke Fink and Chris Finch. The whole point of this episode is because everybody always talks about wanting to build a track, do this and that, and nobody ever does. Luke actually owns a track and has been operating it for a long time, Archer Field. And Chris just bought a track and needs to build something at his track. Yeah. And I wanted to have two guys come together and chat about it and then just see what happens in this interview or this chat or whatever we want to call it, and have questions answered and asked and everything else. So it's up to these guys to do that, and if they fumble, I will jump in. But I think both these guys talk really well and don't need me. So I'm going to set this down and you guys talk.
First of all, I guess, what track did you buy? I don't know. I don't know any background on this.
Obviously, yeah. I didn't realize that you owned a track as well, so that makes things pretty interesting, right? Aaron filled me in on that, but it was actually after last Drift Week. I had kind of always, I guess like everybody, right? Like I want to build my own track. And I'm always kind of poking around, thinking about the idea, and it never goes anywhere. And after last Drift Week, I went back to Vegas and we drove some local events in the parking lots, and I was like, This is what we're missing. Like I'm missing this, and this is why I didn't drive for I stopped drifting for like 15 years. I just started drifting at the last Drift Week, and so I went home and I looked online and I was like, looking at just empty pieces of land, and then there was a speedway for sale in Pahrump, which is maybe 45 minutes to an hour outside of Vegas.
So dirt speedway?
Yeah, dirt
speedway. So there's already permitting in place for noise and all that sort of stuff?
They do not care out there.
Perfect.
I went to the building and safety department before I bought it. I was trying to do my due diligence. Obviously, I didn't trust my real estate agent, so I just did it myself. And they almost laughed at me. They were like, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just wanted to make sure all the buildings are permitted on the property, and I'm not going to have any problems." And they're like, "Yeah, you think we care about that stuff?" I was like, there wasn't even a building department here a few years ago. Just don't even worry about it. So I was like, okay, cool. They said you're zoning everything. You can do whatever you want. Even though I'm in the middle of town. I
would say that is 90% of getting a track done right there. Is biggest thing people understand is it's easy to have, it's not easy to have money, but there's plenty of people with money. There's plenty of people into drifting with money. It's the government and council side of things that is extremely hard to deal with. And the fact that you've got that out of the way, you're 90% of the way there. 100%, that is literally the hardest thing. I've just gone through a big legal battle in Australia for over 12 months over noise ordinance, just trying to fight something. And we've had that. The track's been running drifting for 15 years. I've been running it for 5. And nothing's changed noise-wise. But then all of a sudden there was some new guy that started, found a way to twist the paperwork in a way that makes things difficult for us and caused a lot of drama, nearly shut us down. So the fact that you've got that is already massive.
I'm definitely worried about a long term, but in the immediate, they don't seem to really care. There's a lot of older people that go there, kind of retire out there. There's really not a lot going on. It's a lot quieter. And then they're still relatively close to Vegas. So I do have my fair share of concerns. I mean, it's next door to the DMV.
We need to start buying up the properties around it so they can't complain.
Yeah.
If you're renting the properties out to people, then you know what I mean? That's one thing I have seen people do that can afford it is just buy the properties around it. But yeah, I think you're definitely half the way there. And do you plan to use any of the speedway infrastructure that's already there as part of the track? Is there already bleachers and stuff?
Well, that was a big selling point. I went out there and they have, obviously it's fully gated. They have a drive-through area where you could drive truck and trailer through, and then they have a walk-in area with ticketing booths. Yeah. And then they have a massive bathroom next to that, men's and women's bathrooms. So all that infrastructure is there. It's oval, but it's dirt, but there's concrete barrier all the way around. It's a pretty big oval. There's the grandstands are already offset to one side of the oval, and they're huge. The grandstands, and they're concrete grandstands with steel posts in the concrete. So
they're long lasting.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in Vegas,
very well built. There's above the grandstands are elevated above the track. The track, there's already fencing around the whole barrier around the track to protect, spectators. There's already LED lighting all the way around the track. The pit's already LED lit. There's a PA system. There's concession stands above the the grandstands. So there's concession stands, and above that is like a spotter's tower, a PA room, and then above that is like a balcony for like media and stuff.
You're 98% of the way there.
That's what I'm saying. Like you already have like all these amenities. You could definitely put something together on a small budget, like, and not have to pay for a lot of stuff to be able to have, spectators at the venue. So
yeah, that's sick.
It has a ton of potential, and like I said, and realistically, like there's the biggest racetrack, I guess in the world now. It's bigger than, they just expanded this track, Spring Mountain Raceway, like 3.1 miles, something like that. So it's longer than Nürburgring Ring. And so basically the plan was to expand it to the point where it was the largest racetrack in the world. And that's in Pahrump. And they're wildly successful. So obviously people are willing to travel, to Vegas, like especially a lot of international people and stuff like that.
What is it, LA to Vegas is 4 hours?
Yeah, not too bad, right?
That's not too bad at all. Considering California is like stopping all kinds of motorsports and fun stuff.
Well, and if anywhere you go, right? Like, we're out, like in the middle. People drive 2, 3, 4 hours to go to the track. It's a pretty typical thing. And I think that's like what's missing, like why we don't have a big community in Vegas. And we have incredible events. And we have Nick Dizon, who's a credible organizer and a great friend of mine. And I love him to death. But, Las Vegas Motor Speedway just isn't the right facility, I think, for like really grassroots drifting, especially like low power cars, things of that nature. The parking lot services are unbelievably bad.
Horrible, yeah.
And the road course is insane. It's so good, but it's like more of like an acceleration course. Either way you run it. One way you have to accelerate even harder. So you kind of get pinched and you have to accelerate through it. And if you don't have power, you can't drift the track.
No fun, yeah.
So like you need 400 or 500 horsepower to have a good time at this track, you know?
So you need like that Nico, Japanese style second
100%.
gear, a little bit of third gear track that's fun, which is essentially what my track is. I would prefer my track was a little bit bigger, but even then my track fits within, I think, feet wise, it's like 200 feet long, from one end to the other.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how wide it would be roughly, but we fit the whole track, the pits and everything, all in this one area. And we actually piggyback off the speedway. So I actually rent my land off of a speedway venue.
Okay.
So we're next door to speedway venue, so it's just not a similar situation at all, but it is in a sense where lighting was already there. It was already a go-kart track that I expanded into a drift track, wider. Added cool features that I liked. Nico is a place that everybody knows in Japan and loves. The three-wheelers, dropping the back wheel off the edge. I'm like, I need a Nico drop. That was one of the first things we did. And then after Drift Week 1, I had the time in the States driving the banks, and especially the small banks at, what's that track called?
Adam's Kart Track.
Adam's Kart Track.
Oh,
the small little banked corner.
That's hilarious.
And I was like, because we've got a corner not as tight as Adams one, probably that back corner at Adams, where it's a bit more of a rounder corner where you can sit in second gear comfortably, and it's banked where if it was flat, you'd be really slow around that corner. We have a corner just like that, and feeling that banked, I'm like, I need a bank. So I put in a bank, you know what I mean? So it's just adjusting the course we initially had to suit, not only cars more, but add these little bits. Even though it's a small venue, you really can still chuck a lot of goodies in there which make people like reminisce, or for people that don't have the opportunity to go to Japan or anywhere else like that, to have those things is just amazing. So that's one thing I definitely recommend, is like a lot of these tracks that we've been to.
Sorry.
Oh, I hope someone's closing the windows on my car.
Hi, I am Luke Fink, and I'm filling in while he is rolling up his windows. So I envisioned, like right now y'all are agreeing a lot.
Yeah.
You're just chatting. I wanted to scam him a little bit for like consulting stuff. Like, how big should a track be to be profitable? How many people do you need to get in the gate to do things? How much of it do you want to run like a business?
Definitely, like this stuff. What I want to wanted to get into with him was like asking Luke,
what is the biggest problem? What's the best point? Like blah blah blah.
Absolutely.
Hit things.
No, yeah, definitely. That's what I really wanted to talk to him about, was just to kind of get a feel for that, because obviously, obviously we've talked about this, and maybe that's not going to necessarily be for profit. Like, I'm not like, okay, this track has to open by this time, and I have to make X amount of dollars. Like, like I have all like other uses for the land. I want to build buildings and things like that, and so there's other things that I want to do with the property. But yeah, definitely really curious about like kind of the inner workings of like is this like a full-time gig? Like, do you run a school? Like, what other services do you offer? Like what happens at the track? Like during the week when no one's at rent, is it common for people to rent, or do you run your own events and not rent it out and keep the revenue for yourself and not like allow other organizers to come in? Like, what are the advantages of that? Obviously, demographically, it'd be a lot different. It'd be tough to have a track where like you don't allow other organizers in, especially with drifting in the area that I'm in, because there's so many organizers, and they all have different audiences. So if I want to reach those audiences, I have to work with all these organizers, and it takes a little bit of stress off your own plate. This is gonna be a full-time job for me, so I can't exactly like organize, become an event organizer. I don't think I don't have any ambition to do that. What you do,
it's pretty
I don't
miserable.
have as much patience for. I mean, for the most part, this has got to be a lot of fun.
It's a bad job to make money, though.
For the most, I think there's
better to be a driver.
Be good. Oh yeah, obviously. Look, it's obviously be better to be a driver, but it's not all bad. This is fun. Like I said, you're putting people together. You're putting smiles on people's faces. Like for me, this Drift Week trip is fucking incredible. I look forward to it. I'm literally chopping at the bit for the next 6 months. I go drive other things, and I'm like, when's Drift Week? And so to get to put that together for people has got to be big. But then also there's people that don't respect it, which has got to be frustrating. And I don't have the patience for that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm pretty patient, I guess, for the most part. But yeah, when I get tired of something and I'm done with something, that's it, man.
What was your seating capacity of your bleachers, and like your parking capacity and everything?
That's a good question.
Luke Fink's about to step in.
I don't know the answer to that. I haven't measured and taken dimensions. I'd say the bleachers have to be maybe 12 to 15 rows high and probably 100 to maybe 150 feet wide. I mean, they're pretty big. It's not
How big
like,
is this track?
I mean, you could probably, no, you can't do 7,000 people, but if there was 1,000 people, they could probably sit. It's not small.
Sounds like you'd definitely get more, on the grandstand itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like in that area,
you get people around.
Because you have people standing and stuff like that. And
Here, I'll lead y'all in a business perspective for a second.
Okay,
I like to throw out questions or answers. So, for your track, how many events do you need to host a month? Do you cater to karters? Do you cater like autocross kids? Do you only do drifting? How does a drift track of your size stay in business? And how hard should a person push? He was talking about, do you let outside event organizers rent the place? Is that a disaster? I know you pretty much do all of it yourself. Anyways, I don't know, talk about stuff like that. Another thing I wanted to talk about is when we were at NOLA. You didn't go to NOLA with us, did you?
No.
It is the best asphalt in the country for drifting. It is insane. Even in the dry, you drive all day long, like nonstop. It is completely bonkers. How much thought should be given to the asphalt? Do you know people that actually do that type of stuff? Figure out the perfect aggregate for racing and things like that. How long should a track be? How big should it be? How complicated should it be? How do you have multiple layouts for it to work? Do you do one layout? Do you have to, create a crisscrossing thing? You know what I mean? Because your track, you could do, it's pretty open.
No crisscrossing, but definitely multiple layouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often should the track be open before it oversaturates the market? Like yours. Anyways, talk about stuff like that. I'm getting back out.
just a little bit to think about.
Yeah, what was the first thing? I don't know. The amount of events kinds of events. So when I first took over the business, it was predominantly a go-karting business.
Yeah.
Predominantly go-karting. They ran once, or they probably ran about 4 times a month drifting. But then, if they had, the guy was a bit of a dick. So he would if not enough people turned up at the start of the event, he would just be after an hour, he'd be like, oh, you've done enough, go home. See you later. So he was treating the drifters kind of badly, which whatever. He was a go-kart track. I kind of did the thing the other way around once I took over. We did have go-karts and motorbike guys coming, and they were just complaining a lot. And they're a liability, you know what I mean? People on go-karts and people on motorbikes, they get thrown off, they break ankles, they break wrists, they break arms. It's a liability. So for me, I was we were making money from it. It was risky from that sense of them getting hurt and potentially suing. But more than anything, they just complained a lot. And for the amount they were bringing in and for my mental health, I was like, you guys can go. They were kicked up a stink. You can't do that. I definitely can.
Yeah.
It's kind of my place. It's kind of called a drift park, not a go-kart track anymore. And, we expand everything else. So I literally only run drifting right now. I'm lucky enough where we are in a pretty ridiculous place as far as track goes. We're literally in the middle, like we're 15 minutes from a capital city. We're in that city.
Yeah.
But from the centre of town, the skyscrapers, you can see them from my track. Like you can see them in the distance. So, but we are next to an airport, a speedway, and then there's sort of a river and luckily a little bit of grassland and then some houses, and they were the ones that complaining, and the ones the other way sort of don't really complain. But we're in a fantastic spot from a majority of our events are weeknights. Every second Tuesday night we run beginner sessions with free tutors, and then every single Thursday night is advanced nights, and then we run every second Sunday with beginner event in the morning and then an advanced event in the afternoon. That keeps a lot of free time for myself, which I quite like. The track still turns over and makes profit, and makes enough money to expand it and everything else. But for me personally, it was more of a personal decision based on my leisure life, my life outside of the drift park. I love drifting, but I know if I'm there too much, I'll lose that love, and it'll be too much. So yeah, I think twice a week is realistically what we're running, which is a lot. But I have another track that's only 30 minutes away from me, which is like a big course, like this course, even faster. So we complement each other from a sense. If you want to go do the big fast stuff, you go there. You want to come and do fast transition, technical, tandem driving, hit a bank, hit a Nico drop, that sort of stuff, we have our track. But because of the two tracks and because they've been running for so long, there's a massive amount of drivers at hand. We always have drivers. So at the start it was touch and go, trying to convince, basically to make everybody aware that we changed owners and that Dick wasn't there anymore. But yeah, it's come along and we get good crowds and good spectators. Even on a weeknight, on a beginner night, we still get people that, come out and watch. And a lot of time when beginners come, they usually bring their families and friends. So, you're charging spectators and pit passes and things like that. It's financially still viable to run a beginner night, even though, you're supplying tutors, which you usually just exchange for track time for the tutor anyway. So, someone's usually happy to come along and teach, and they don't have to be a pro driver, obviously. They just have to be a better driver that can teach people effectively, go passenger, do that sort of stuff. So, yeah, and we offer, free track time for our guys that come and tutor, and it all sort of works itself out, I guess.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, like the tutoring thing. Like, you just get to show up to kind of a beginner day and get tutoring. What about, like, I know they have these things. They run them at Willow Springs, right? And there's a few different places. Some places on the East Coast where they run drift schools. You actually go to the track. They actually have a physical school there that you sign up for.
So we've done it before where we had our own cars. It was just the upkeep and stuff. And like I said, on that personal level, it just got too much. The upkeep of the cars. People sort of treat them like shit. Treat them like a go-kart. They think they can just sort of smash it over ripple strips and stuff and get out and be like, oh. And it's like, no, buddy, you signed a piece of paper that says you have to pay to fix that. And then they get upset. It's a big hassle. It was a big hassle. But at the end of the day, there are things you can still do, but I think they're more, I don't know if you've got websites like Adrenaline in the US where people just go on and can buy experiences.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But ride-along stuff is fantastic on those experience things. That's like another revenue stream. If you've got a couple guys there with, they don't have to be crazy cars. They can be 350s. For a regular person, passenger, as long as it's got a roll cage and they're getting harnessed in, it's a race car.
And I think you mentioned having like a big track nearby you, but I mean, like, I think the small tracks are key to building a community.
Absolutely. We definitely have more of a community at our track because you're so squashed into with the pits. You're never more than 50 feet away from someone. So when it comes to that community aspect, it's always there, especially, you can't go and pit over the other side and be a loner, and you're kind of stuck in, and forced to be part of the community, I guess.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, and that's like a big aspect that I was missing, is like community and stuff like that back from when you know, I used to drift in the early 2000s, you know, and I didn't see as much of it, and I was a little bit disconnected for drifting because I stopped drifting for like 15, 16 years or whatever it was, and then you know, I talked to like Aaron, and he's like, yeah, what was it, 350Z Nationals, we're gonna have 100 350Zs. I was like, how?
Oh, well, you can cut that out.
Cut that out. But yeah, but you know, talking to Aaron, you have these like he has these events with like crazy amounts of drivers, and everybody's got, you know, there's a lot of people. They have low horsepower cars, stockish cars, like so whether it's 350Z, Mustangs, Corvettes, or whatever, and they're not trying to build pro cars. They're just C-type. They're building reliable cars. And it's not about who has the most power. You know, tracks that are catered towards decelerating and things like that, and people. Like, you're building up this community of drivers, but you're retaining your driver retention. So like, yes. And I think that's what was missing in my area is we don't have driver retention, right? So we have drivers, they come out and they progress, and they're like, I want to go out and I want to do this road course or whatever, and they feel like they need a pro car.
Yeah, they're spending too much money.
Building something that these guys will never finish, and even if they do finish, it's gonna blow up.
Or they can't afford to run it.
Exactly.
The simple fact of a lap or 2 laps to a set of tyres isn't sustainable. So we've got to a point where guys have their practice or missile cars, and then they'll come out when we have a comp, they'll come out in their pro cars. But their cars, you know, they'll literally be what we have as Ford Falcons, which is just a 6-cylinder. I guess you compare it to an E46. You know, they've essentially got your E46s, they go out, they can run door, not use so many tyres, they don't really brake that much, and they just have an absolute blast. But then comes comp time, they've still got their comp cars, but they don't go crazy on their, well, I lie, it's wise to have 2J cars and all that sort of stuff. We definitely still have crazy cars, but most guys now have the practice cars to come and just pump laps, get good tandem in. And the thing is at the start, it'll take time, obviously, to build up that community. Once the community's in place, you really can, you know, people will be there consistently. And that's where I think the beginner thing that we've done, that's only been sort of the last 2 years. The amount of drivers we've had filtering through from beginner to driving awesome to then entering our level 2 competitions and now even into our pro competitions within 2 years with the tuition and everything is insane. And they're learning the right way because we're getting them from the start. And you really can sort of mold your own thing, I guess.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
Oh, is it like so?
I was going to interject in a second.
So basically, this track already existed as a car track, and then you kind of came into taking over this track, taking ownership of this track, which was, I guess, leased from the Speedway,
venue,
right?
Yeah.
So, and it already had a car track on it, and so I'm assuming a car track, it probably had a pretty good surface, like as a car track, or was it?
Yeah, there's not a lot of that surface left, and it was very old and very thin. That was the problem. It's very thin. It wasn't meant to hold cars, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of it which is sinking and whatnot, and we've had a few, especially in the last 5 or so years, we've had multiple floods that have actually covered, like just recently, my entire track was covered. Oh. Yeah, it flooded into my canteen, into my front booth, like ticket booth, and everything was all got flooded. The track held up pretty well from that, but you can see, like, in the old go-kart areas of the track, which is still go-kart surface, are still...
Things are settling a
little bit, you know, wavy now.
And then, obviously, like, so now you have to expand into other areas, right? Like, expand the track, add more real estate or runoff, or add turns or whatever it is, right? To, like, make the track more interesting to drift, right?
Exactly. Because we're open so often, we, you know, in even only the 5 years I've had it, we've added a bunch of new, you know, potential layouts there, and we're always trying to mix it up, especially with our comps, because of the multiple layouts you can use on the track, even coming back on itself. For comps and stuff especially, we can get really, really creative with the space we have, and you kind of wouldn't, I don't know, you wouldn't expect that we could have as many layouts. Like, I can still go there now and create a layout that we haven't done before, which is just crazy. It's awesome.
So when you add, like, let's just say you're coming in, you're repaving parts of the track, or you're adding a lot, or, you know, more runoff or whatever, like, how much goes into, like, this choosing the type of like aggregate that you would use, like the type of asphalt you would use to pave those areas?
So we had a unique situation of the whole flooding's an issue, and we're a flood zone. So we had an issue where the whole essentially the bottom third of the track is soft, like the ground's soft, and without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on doing groundwork underneath, I really couldn't get the track to hold together. And that's where I made the choice to make concrete.
Oh, wow.
So nearly half my course is concrete.
Oh, wow.
So that was a way of getting around, the initial outlay for the concrete was a lot more than bitumen or asphalt, but it holds together. We did like very high MPA concrete, thick Rio. It's not going to go anywhere, you know what I mean? The concrete's a 50-year sort of thing, it's definitely not going anywhere. It's not quite as good a surface as asphalt, in my opinion, but it has positives from a sense where you don't get potholes, you don't get any slipperiness, and then the crazy thing is when it's wet, concrete's super grippy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when
dry?
you actually it's actually similar in the wet to the dry. It's probably relatable to Pocono, where in the wet it was super grippy, and in the dry it wasn't a lot grippier.
It was surprising, very surprising.
That's what the concrete's like.
Oh, wow.
So that's probably a more interesting thing. So we didn't necessarily choose the aggregate. It was, the choice was sort of made. You
didn't have a choice.
We had to go concrete because there's no real way around it. There's other negatives that come with that because we're going concrete to bitumen. Concrete obviously, it breathes, it expands, and it subtracts. So where it joins the asphalt, we have a little bit of issue with the asphalt. But overall, it was definitely the way forward in that area. But other than that, we've tried to go with a smoother surface. And I guess the hard thing with my track is there's no cool down zone at all. But it's just hot lapping, similar to Pocono, with absolutely no straight. There is one straight, but it's not a long enough straight for you to be necessarily cooling your tyres down as such. So, tyre heat management is definitely a thing, but the track seems to, the newer surfaces we've done with, I think it was a 5 mil or a 6 mil stone, which seems to be like pretty good on the tyres. It's not small enough where it heats the tyre up too much, but it's not so big where it chunks the tyre. So it's been pretty good.
That's awesome, man. I mean, and obviously having, some conveniences, runoff straights, cool down areas, stuff like that is nice. But like I said, Pocono is a blast. You just pull off the course, pull back on the course.
It's easy to be ignorant. It's such a positive and a negative at the same time. When you're in a tandem with a buddy and you don't have a start line or anywhere to have that breather and think to yourself and look at your temp gauges and be like, all right, dum, you need to stop. But it's up to you.
It's
as a
a responsibility to drive, right?
That's not the track's problem.
Things are probably a little bit simpler here. Everyone here on Drift Week knows what they're doing, right? So,
keep going.
It's a little different.
I was going to just interject with a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So my next one, to get you on a new topic to keep things flowing. It's okay. We can cut this. How viable, Luke, is it for you to build your track over again without buying it as a used thing?
Yeah.
Depreciated and everything. Would it be possible for you to build your track and be profitable in today's market? You get the question. Go ahead.
I think it would be viable to build it outright because as good as it was coming into something that was already there and already had some drifting, it was done extremely badly. So more than the first few months was the biggest struggle of all because I had to it was hard to make people understand that I'd taken the venue over and this dickhead wasn't there anymore, basically. And that was one of my biggest hurdles, full stop, with the venue, where, you start a fresh venue, everyone's super excited. So regardless of anything, when you build this track, everybody's want to come and hit it straight away. Yeah. That's a simple fact of, your initial marketing is done by the fact that you've just built the track. Pictures of the track, have a few dudes driving it, your mates with Wang, get Wang out there shredding it. You know what I mean? Like, that is going to sell itself. And I feel like that is going to give you a fairly good initial startup straight out of straight away because people are going to want to hit it. So
what about the build cost versus the depreciated cost of buying something older?
No, I think in hindsight, learning, I spent well over 100,000 learning, doing the wrong thing. Absolutely doing the wrong thing. As far as repairs, I started off doing smaller patches, then bigger patches, then realizing that the patches are not the way forward, using multiple different vendors that, some did a shitty job, then literally bankrupt their own business to get out of it, and things like that. So there was a lot of, sucky parts of learning where you initially build a circuit and have it built properly in the first place. You've probably got 10 years of problem-free drifting. You know what I mean? You don't have any worries about upkeep other than, filling in dirt drops realistically, I
mean, realistically, like, a track, you have to be, I'm sure you'd have to plan to be in business for a long period of time to recoup, because it's not cheap to lay asphalt down and to move dirt, especially today, in today's market. It's very expensive.
Yeah, the gas.
We're kind of feeling out some of the cost, and it definitely looks like it's going to be pretty bad, So I'm like, okay, well, that's okay. It's just got to make money over time. Obviously, unfortunately, I'm in a different situation where, I was purchasing the land. It's got a pretty good bit of land, and we're going to build some buildings on it, and I'm potentially going to be using some of the warehouses for other things that I need, and I could really offset some of my monthly overhead that way. Obviously, my initial cost of land being in Pahrump was very good. I already had power, well, everything, so I have all the amenities I need, and obviously the grandstands and stuff, that stuff adds up immensely. But then it's just figuring out ways to generate revenue. Obviously you're generating...
Car storage is a great one. There's a lot of drivers, I find one of the hardest things in drifting is it's not, everyone can afford, not everybody, but a lot of people can afford to buy the drift car. Yeah. It's the trailer, the truck, the everything else. If you can just buy a shitty car and potentially leave it out there and you just turn up with your gas,
that's another thing is I wanted to be able to build some small garages around the perimeter.
Yeah.
Have places for people to be able to rent garages, store their cars, potentially even have garages with lifts. I wanted to have kind of like an area, with a showroom, classroom even, or one of the concepts was to even do like a 2-story with like windows around it, so that way you could overlook the track, have kind of like a clubhouse, like hangout area, but also have like our tire machines, our like lifts, everything available to everybody. Tires, I don't want to work on anybody's car, but have tires available
at the track.
Have all that stuff. There's a lot of different ways to generate revenue, and one of the big things like in my head that I was thinking that was missing from tracks in general, right? In my head is like marketing, signage, like media, like who's got a track that is a drift track, right? And then how do you take elements, like you talked about Nico Circuit, like we started talking about this, like making a list of like iconic turns, right? Like things that we would want to do. I don't want to replicate someone else's track.
Yeah.
I don't want to have a 1-to-1 replica of Mahon or whatever. I don't want that. But I would like to have some of those experiences, right? Like similarities, right? Exactly, right? Like, so I want to have a spot where you could 3-wheel, things like that, right? And maybe... Like, I love Drift Week because I love the private event aspect of it. Like, the LZ thing was massive, and it was great, and it was, for a lot of people, it was incredible. For me, that's not me, right? But at the same time, like, a lot of people, they go to the track, they just want to take pictures of their car, they want to get good media, right? So I'm thinking if you build the track correctly and you put media areas that are easily accessible without interrupting the track around key turns, and you have a section where you can 3-wheel, you have a section like Mahon, the entry, and you create these different sections that are iconic, right? And kind of make them your own, but stage media, cameras, and then you have a lot of room for signage in the background. And if you make it a destination for people to collect media, like not just go to the track, right? Because there's a ton of tracks, right? Like that you could go to in California, right? Like you have Willow Springs, and you have a lot of stuff with it, especially if it's, let's just say 6 hours, right? There becomes like a ton of fun tracks that you could hit. But a lot of these guys, they just want to get cool pictures of themselves and see themselves driving and stuff like that. That's a real big motivating factor for a lot of people. So if I could stage, cameras and things like that automatically record or whatever in those like 3 key turns on my track or something, you never miss those moments. And it's a place where you get always guaranteed to capture capture those moments that you're having a good time and stuff like that, and it makes them shareable. It makes people that even want to generate media for a living, YouTube, things like that. It makes it, a destination for people from all around the world, destination for people that want media for media purposes and stuff like that. And we get to capture all those moments, and that signage could become very valuable in that moment. It becomes a very difficult metric to calculate, right? To track, because that content goes out and it's got someone's logo in the background, but it's hard to see how far it travels because you don't actually get to see every person that reposts those pictures.
Yeah.
They'd have to physically tag you.
Fantastic brand recognition.
But there's a huge opportunity for brand recognition, and a lot of these tracks, they don't cater to drifting, or drifting's kind of a side thing they do, or they don't care about drifting. It's whatever. If you want to pay a thing, come drift or whatever. They don't care, right? And I think it's a big missed opportunity. But the track would have to be catered towards drifting because the brands that would pay, to pay for that spot, if there's all kinds of different motorsports all the time, it's only one, the brands are only going to be relevant to one, form of racing, right? So a lot of these brands can be fairly niche and things like that. So that's a big thing too. So if it's a drift specific track, then you have a lot of companies that are involved in drifting and stuff like that, where this could definitely be an opportunity to generate as a revenue generator for these guys that are trying to do drift specific tracks.
Yeah, well, there's not even that. There's the warehousing side of things, where obviously you're going to be setting up warehousing, but as a potential, because was it BC that have set up in Vegas?
Yes,
Someone set up in Vegas?
Just set up in Vegas, yes.
Yeah, so obviously they've already got a place, but that is obviously, having a track and a test venue for someone potentially to test parts and whatnot 100%. Could be a cool place for, someone that does develop parts to move out to, and totally makes sense. Financially, building the track is a larger expense, but you don't need to go insane straight up either. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't do a 600 meter long circuit and still get a lot of cool stuff in there that people will still absolutely enjoy. My track is, I think in length, it's a quarter mile.
Oh.
So it's not a super long track.
Yeah.
But you still fit a whole lot of, we've still got a Nico corner, we've still got a bank corner, we've still got a third gear bake corner, we've got everything you need.
Yeah.
So you don't need to outlay, you don't need to build a road course straight up. You can absolutely build something that is directly catered to drifting and then expand from that point. And I think in doing so, you obviously rebuild hype in the future as well. If you say you do a year or 2 years on that one layout, and then you're like, right, boys, it's happening, there's the big extension, everybody gets excited. It sells itself, right? Marketing-wise, you're building a new part of the circuit. That's... 100%. Everyone wants to know. And if that's happening, and again, same thing, as soon as the new part's done, it's notable drivers out, and it sells itself. And it is a massive form of advertising in its own sense. So I think that, in my opinion, if I had to start out from scratch again, I would just do a basic circuit, the basic circuit that was essentially at my track. And then as I have done extensions and built hype again, because one of my biggest events I ever did outside of bringing in big YouTubers or FD drivers was an extension. I'd had a new extension part of the track I had done, and the place was packed, absolutely packed. We had to cap the drivers, we had to stop letting drivers in. You were shoulder to shoulder in the place. You couldn't move. It was just an absolutely packed house, and everyone was so excited for the new section of track. And I guess that says a lot in itself. Everyone's excited to drive new stuff. The whole point of Drift Week is to drive new stuff. We all just want to drive new stuff.
We've come a long way. We've gone through lots just to do that, right?
I've come from the other side of the world to drive new stuff. It's
pretty self-explanatory, right?
Yeah.
We're literally doing this.
We all get super excited about it. Even just turning this track around today, I'm excited. It's going to be sick. We're going to hit everything from a totally different direction. And you got to think, if you're a local here, in for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden they're going to start running the track the other way, you bet your ass that next couple of events with that track running the other way are going to be packed, because everyone's going to be pumped and wants something new and exciting. And it's the same track, but it's backwards. It's definitely exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really not planning on building anything elaborate. My plan is, like I said, part of it is getting the initial layout figured out. Try to keep it somewhat simple, but I want to really bring in some cool elements to it. And then we wanted to build buildings and stuff on it, so that way I had ways to justifiably use the land, because I didn't really want to have a lot of pressure on myself for the track to generate revenue right away. I really wanted to build something for myself and kind of figure it out and go from there and start having some events and things like that, and just kind of work my way into it and see where it goes, and see what needs to be improved upon. And I definitely am not really trying to jump headfirst into this, because I have so many different things going on. There's just no way I could really jump like headfirst into this project as a whole, but it's definitely a massive undertaking. But I think it's got to be a lot of fun to have your own track and
yeah, it absolutely is. And you're even in a great position. Mine, when I'm open, is when I'm legally allowed to be open. I can't just go to my track during the week and go and cut some laps if I want to.
Oh wow!
Because of the noise ordinance.
Yeah.
So I can't go and use it when I want to. So I can only use it when we're having the public event. So you're in an even better situation where, being a businessman like you are, you need to blow off some steam. You just pop down
Yeah, it's kind of like
smash a couple of sets of tires off.
Yeah, there's no noise ordinance or anything there. I definitely worry about it long term, but I think one of the cool things about Pahrump, well, not one of the cool things, but it's not a fast growing area because they have a lot of water issues, like getting water, and they're on a salt lake bed.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for them to build. You have to take out a huge layer of dirt and lay down rock just to build houses. Just to get the cost to even get water to a property is astronomical. So I think that I have a lot of time there. So I definitely think that I think it's a good location. Like I said, the Speedway would be nice, but Nevada's, or Clark County, Las Vegas area is the hardest place probably, definitely in the country. The strictest building codes. I know there's another guy in town has been working on building a track for the last few years, and still hasn't got approval. He had approval to build the track, and then I think he waited too long to start, and then the people that were in office at the time that were on board changed, and now he's starting the process all over again. And I don't know. I'm sure sometimes he's got to wonder if he's going to get this thing done. He's pretty. This guy's well connected too. He's got a lot of money and he's doing well for himself. And I want to see this track happen. What's that? Oh, sorry. So I really want to see that happen as well. But man, building a track there is horrible. So I've definitely had a huge advantage already having a lot of the facilities, the permitting, obviously, and being able to do whatever I want, not having noise ordinance, having the zoning.
I feel like that's 90% of it, and the other 8%. It probably sounds weird to a lot of people, but it really is. 90% of it is the city stuff. The city stuff is so hard. Like you said, that guy's been trying. He's well connected. He's obviously got the money to do it. He's got the land. He can't get past the city bit. Then everything else you've already got in place. I feel as silly as it might sound to a lot of people, that 2% left is the track, because it'll sell itself from a sense it's a brand new track. Everyone's going to get excited straight away. But overall, a lot of your hard work, I feel, is done.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It just gets to the point where you're allowed to build a track, and the noise ordinance thing is crazy.
Smooth.
Kind of get a little bit close. But yeah, I'm definitely excited, man. We're gonna have to. I need to come out to Australia one of these days, drive your track, and then you'll come back out for Drift Week. We'll have a Drift Week at my track one of these days. And we'll get to definitely share a little bit and drive each other's tracks. It's going to be a lot of fun.
As we finish up, Luke, give him 2 suggestions. 2 things that are important. Super simple.
2 things that are important. Drifters have absolutely no idea what they want. I think you'll agree with that.
That is 100% correct. You cannot ask.
Yeah, you can't really ask drifters what they want because they don't know. And they will tell you what they want. And, I had people begging forever, do a team tandem comp. We did a team tandem comp, no one entered. And it's all you guys did was bust my balls for years to run a team tandem comp, and then none of you entered. Literally, nobody. I think we had 1 team, but it was what were they versing themselves? So drifters have no idea what they want, for one. And sorry guys, it's true. We're not the brightest people, are we? Brand new tyres on, destroy cars. It's not the brightest sport in the world. Secondly, how would I say it? Make sure you have your leisure time, I guess. You know, don't let it overtake your life. And I think that's not necessarily a track thing. That's just the life thing. But I feel like you don't want to run a track and end up hating drifting. You know, potentially, like you said, you walked away from it for 15 years. You don't want to put yourself in that situation where you don't really like it or want to be involved in it anymore. So I'd say, you know, keeping it manageable on your terms is definitely the way forward, and, you know, keeping it spicy, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. I've learned that lesson the hard way, working on cars and stuff, especially back in the day, just hating it. Yep. Dreading when it's my turn to prep my car for the next event, and it just made me miserable.
I think we all go through it. You know, I worked hard on my car for years, then I just straight up was like, nope, shops can deal with it, Shops fucked it up, then I'm like, no, I deal with my car now. For the most part, just with, you know, help from a few friends.
Sometimes you got to take things into your own hands.
Exactly right, and that's what you're doing with the track. I wish you absolutely all the luck in the world. I'm looking forward to coming to drive it.
I'm looking forward to having you there.
Do some backies there.
Thank you, guys. Perfect.
Awesome.
All right, thank you.
And if you made it this far through this video, you must be a Lone Star Drift fan. Come hang out with us at MSR Houston, obviously in Houston, Texas, on May 21st and 22nd. And if you're not a Lone Star Drift fan, you must be my mom. Hi, Mom. I hope you're having a good day. Bye.